from New Hampshire. That's where we are. We have a very interesting studio here. We're surrounded by such beautiful farm and altogether different. Who knows? It may change our attitude. I doubt it. The big story of the day, obviously, is as I said, some call it Pearl Harbor attack on Russia. Some people say it's like the Pearl Harbor for the Russians, the Russian Pearl Harbor. I say there is something to that in the sense of the enormity of it, and even the surprise, because people didn't expect it. But the thing that makes it a little different, and therefore I wouldn't like to see a complete analogy to Pearl Harbor, it didn't involve an attack where people weren't at war. I mean, they were at war with each other. Japan attacked us, and we had not attacked them at all. We were not at war with them. There may have been hostilities in the sense of negotiation type hostilities, but there weren't any major military conflicts. These two countries have been in bitter war with each other. And of course, Russia has been asking for it for quite some time. When you start hitting residences and homes and in a country, they're going to hit you back if they can. And they were prevented from hitting back by Biden. And we'll go into the details of it shortly. I had just covered it on my other show. And so we'll cover it a little bit later on this show, but we'll cover it in great detail. So you get to understand what happened and how it happened. And this whole question of did the White House know about it or didn't the White House know about it should be addressed also. The big beautiful bill, I guess the issue now is it going to get through by July 4th? You run into an August deadline in terms of the debt, which means the ceiling has to be raised at a certain point. Usually there's more play in the date than is first indicated. Now that changes sometimes as receipts go up. So remember, everything is premised on, are we going beyond what had been authorized as the amount of money that we spend, which is based on the amount of money we take in. And we're starting to get to a break-even point and then a negative point. But if you take in 2% more than you anticipated, as we did earlier, which it gets extended. So if the tariffs, for example, bring in unanticipated income of some major proportion, that could extend it 2 months or 3 months. So I'm sure the worst case scenario right now is August. But this bill, which is why it's called the big, beautiful bill, does everything. It extends the debt limit. It lowers tax. It extends the Trump tax cuts and adds tax cuts to it. It also provides for a substantial increase in defense spending and spending on illegal immigration and reversing the tremendous damage in both cases that Biden did to us with the wars that he basically would not have happened but for him. And certainly the 15, 20 million illegals he let in, many of whom turn out to be criminals. So all of that is in there. But there's also a pretty good chunk taken out of green spending, which I think we should remove. The bill removes a lot of the subsidies for wind and solar, and if you think about it, people are as a result of wind and solar, we are paying a lot more for energy than we were before, because those tax credits that we're giving out are given out to private companies so that they can operate, and then they charge huge amounts of money. Now, if you look at New York, where they have probably the most subsidies, New York pays 50% more for electricity than the average in the country. As the report indicates, if you're forced to pay more for electricity, you have less money to spend on everything else. The subsidized jobs the green energy advocates and their political enablers wish to create are also hugely expensive. Over the life of an offshore wind project, including the now greenlit Empire Wind, the average costs are over $1 million per job each and every year. So you're paying enormous amounts of money for wind and solar. The purpose of it being that it's supposed to be more reliable, and it absolutely isn't, right? Because when the wind doesn't blow, you don't get no electricity, and the wind doesn't blow all the time. And when it's nighttime, you don't get any electricity because you don't have solar, and the moon doesn't do any good. So these are two highly inefficient sources of energy that have to be compensated for with another source of energy. So you still need your fossil fuels for that source of energy. And if you took the subsidies away, nobody would do it. Which is why the subsidies shouldn't be there, because they were developed and there really is no support for them. It's like what happened with the electric cars and why the whole thing has fallen through. We put in a tremendous amount of money so people would build these cars. Nobody would have done it if they weren't given money by the government. But then we find we don't have the infrastructure for it. And the infrastructure for it will turn out to be as theoretically damaging to climate change, if they're right about it, as gasoline, cars using gasoline. Because to produce the electricity you're going to need to take care of all the cars does as much damage to the climate as the automobiles do, if the automobiles really damage the climate that much. So the bill now stands this way. It's in the Senate. There are 4 senators who have objected to it, and there are a couple of others that we think are objecting to it. Rand Paul is the only one who has said definitively, I'm not voting for it no matter what. However, his objection is different to some extent than the others. His objection is the same, but his point of no return is the extension of the debt limit. In other words, he'd live with the pros and cons of deficit reduction, because there are a lot of things in it that he likes. And deficit reduction is kind of interesting. There is a 1 point altogether. What is the actual deficit reduction? Let me see. The actual amount. There is a deficit reduction. That is not anywhere near as high as they would like. However, if the speaker is correct, it is the biggest deficit reduction we've ever done. Now, that's not saying much. You know, I had the biggest tax reduction in the history of New York City when I reduced taxes by about nothing. I mean, very, very little. It was like a $27 million reduction. And my chief of staff came to me and said, congratulations, you have the biggest reduction in taxes in New York State history. And I said, it can't be, Peter. I mean, it was just a small reduction, a good one, a really good one, and one that's going to produce many more later. But he said, well, the reason you have biggest one is there's never been a reduction in taxes ever. So when we say it's the biggest reduction in spending over the next 10 years ever, it's because we never reduce spending. We do it for a year or two. It's 1.7%, the reduction in spending right now. Now, as Johnson points out, the speaker, it's going to be higher than that. Because if you put in, there's no real adequate assessment of the impact on the economy of the tax reductions and the economic incentives that are being created, or of the vast amount of money that's come into the American economy, probably unprecedented in the last in the last 3 months, 4 months. If you pay attention, you see 500 million from here, $1 trillion from here, 200 million from here, 200 billion from here, 300 billion from here. All of this is creating a tremendous amount of economic activity, which isn't going to translate itself immediately into increased tax collections. You can collect more money on a lower tax if you stimulate more activity. That's how this all works. Democrats and liberal newspapers and accountants don't believe that. So when I cut the tax, I had a major debt that I had to deal with. I had to reduce my spending to reach it. But then it turned out that I made more money from the lower tax than I would from the higher tax, because it was more business activity. That's what's going to happen here. So that 1.7% has to be based on very, very small. I'm not even sure there is one, but if it is, it'll be a very, very small estimate of the economic impact of not only the tax cuts, but the other things that are being done: regulatory reform, whatever, shrinking of government. That's going to be much higher. So that 1.7% is going to be closer to double that. Plus, you cannot reduce a deficit of this size in 1 year. First of all, you're not going to get political support to do it. But two, you can't do it. You'd crash. It's like if you have to lose 100 pounds, how do you do it in a day? You do it in a year or 2 years, right? But you stay at it, right? And that's what they're going to do. And so I think that the senators who are saying that there need to be more reductions, that would be Senator Johnson, it would be one of those. Senator Scott, it'd be one of those. Whereas Senator Rand Paul's objection is more the debt ceiling. Now, and he said he would vote for it if that were taken out. That could be taken out. The debt ceiling doesn't come up, as I said, until August. August probably means September or October, given the way it usually works and given the performance of the economy right now, which is going to, we could put more money than I believe the receipts for the government will be more than had been calculated. That would extend the debt ceiling. So if it really is just 4, and he's one of them, you can probably get it through if you take out the debt ceiling, just pull that out of the bill, that one thing, and then pass the whole rest of the bill. But it would be good to see if we could get Senator Scott and Senator Johnson, who have specific recommendations as to reductions they'd like to see. Then there are some other Republicans, and they may be more in the weeds, like Lisa Murkowski, and Hawley, who are more concerned about Medicaid. And in Hawley's case, he may be concerned about Medicaid because of Medicaid cuts, which kind of becomes very, very hard if you got to send it back to the House and have them completely ignore the fact that Medicaid is a very, very poorly run program. Or I'll be more specific, it's riddled with fraud. So you should take out a certain amount of money that you honestly and in good faith expect is going to be reduced because you're putting in measures to cut out the fraud, which they're doing. And that's the contribution that Musk made. He certainly started that process when nobody else would. And it's a shame that he was treated the way he was treated. In fact, the whole way in which the whole contribution of Doge is tremendous. And the fact that they haven't met the trillion is ridiculous. Nobody cooperated with them. All the secretaries went crazy. Everybody was looking at their agency, and the infighting against him, if you know about infighting in Washington, must have been absolutely, absolutely terrible. But in any event, I think these are things that can be dealt with. I do think this bill is going to get passed. If you add Hawley and Murkowski, you then have about 6 or 7 against it. You can only take 3 against it. So you're going to have to get back some of them. I do think that Scott and Johnson respect the president enough so that if it meant they were in essence raising taxes, which is what happens if you don't pass this. Please understand the consequence of not passing this. If this bill is not passed, then our taxes go up higher, be the highest tax cut we've ever had. On the other hand, if it is passed, it'll be one of the highest, one of the best tax cuts. If we don't pass it, it'll be the highest tax increase. So I don't see Johnson and Scott and Grassley going that way. Now, on the Medicaid issue, I don't know it as well because the Medicaid cuts are premised on the fact that certain actions have been taken already and are going to be taken to cut out the large number of people who are cheating, who either don't belong on Medicaid or it isn't them cheating, it's the doctors or the hospitals that are cheating. Now, to not estimate a certain amount that you're going to find there creates no incentive to find it, creates no discipline to find it. It's the way I used to budget and how I got the city to a surplus. It's the way any good manager budgets, but of course, Democrats aren't. Democrats are irresponsible, horrible managers of the budget. Look at all the cities they're ruining. So I am hoping, because I have tremendous respect for the 3 senators you're talking about, Scott, Johnson, and Grassley. I mean, Grassley is one of the great senators, and the other 2 are going to be great senators if they aren't already. I think they're trying to get a little more out of it. And again, the deal could be made with Rand Paul if he's being straight up, and he always is, usually. I mean, I've never seen Rand Paul be anything other than I disagree with him sometimes. I disagree on his isolationism, for example, but I've never seen him be anything less than honest. So there's a way through that too. I just hope they put in the work, not them, but the whole Senate. I mean, the Senate works 2 or 2.5 days a week. We'd like to get this over before July 4th. You know, once this is over, it's going to also help the economy, which doesn't need that much help, but it'll really settle it. It'll really boost it, actually, as we anticipate the tax cuts. Scott has said, said to Charlie Kirk that he's absolutely not going to vote for it if it remains the way it is. All it needs is a little tweak, I think, to get someone like Senator Scott. So let's see how that all works out. There's going to be a day-by-day situation. Not so much not so much as to whether ultimately I do believe it'll pass, but it would be very, very good if we got this passed before July 4th, so that I believe the sooner we get it passed, we can move on to other things that have to be done as well. The work of this administration is gargantuan because it is turning around an entire ship of state. That's not easy. Not easy at all. And I do want to say that I feel really terrible that Musk had to leave and the way he had to leave. And I see there are areas where he disagrees with the administration, disagrees with this bill. And he actually used 80%. I 80% agree and 20% disagree. Well, that's what Ronald Reagan used to use. If you're my 80% friend, you're not my 20% enemy. He's been a real patriot. I mean, I of course think that was already taken care of when he saved free speech. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month.
Wow.
Including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news, even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax, channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly, where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
Welcome back to America's Mayor Live. This is Rudy Giuliani, and I am coming to you from the live free or die state, where every time you're here, you think about that. And there's something about the whole atmosphere of it that has that feeling of very strong, independent people who, it's like what America used to be like and is becoming again. That's the way I would put it. The whole, the decision of a court that you probably had never heard of, but I know because I worked across the street from it for 2,000 years, the Court of International Trade. One of their lower court judges has decided that the president can't raise taxes the way he has because Congress didn't give him that he's overreading the authority that he got from Congress to do it. Now, every prior case with other presidents that interpreted this authority has come out in the president's favor, that the president did have the authority to do it. And this, I'm not going to go into great detail with this decision right now until it gets a little closer to the time that it's argued. But this is a complete negation of the separation of powers, and also what used to be a very, very lively doctrine that protected the separation of powers called the political question doctrine. Now, why do I know that? Because when I was in law school, I wrote a law review article about it, something I did that somehow Barack Obama never did. We can't find any law review articles from Barack Obama when he was a law student. Gee, I wonder why. But in any event, I wrote a law review article, co-authored it with my. It's absolutely true that he didn't write a law review article, and that I mean I wrote a number, but this one that I wrote as an author with my law school roommate.
We'll come back to this, but I have to know because I've always been told he was the president of the Harvard Law Review.
Yeah, he got elected president of the Harvard Law Review based on popularity, not based on scholarship.
The
law reviews traditionally.
You have to work to get on it.
Well, law reviews look at you get selected, but you get selected based on the articles that you wrote. You wrote the best articles, so you get selected. And there's a lot of fighting over. Obviously, there'd be a lot of fighting over that too. What you think is the best article, I may think isn't. But in any event, I'm off the point. The point is, political question is sounds like it. It can't be political. Political question maybe should have a more, because everybody thinks of politics, it should have a different title. But it really protects the separation of powers. Here's what it means. As you know, the federal government operates only on the powers granted to it. It has no other powers. It's whatever powers are granted to you, you have. Whatever ones you don't have, you can't just say you have. Now, a certain amount can be done under the necessary and proper clause, which says that the Congress has the ability to do things that are necessary and proper in order to effectuate what they already have to do. And you can be honest or dishonest about that. And that's where the left wingers really extend the Constitution way beyond what it's supposed to allow. And we did it so much that we have a fourth branch of government now, the independent agencies that never existed before. And we have the courts deciding that they can make foreign policy, which they never were able to do before. This is a complete bastardization of our government. We have completely changed the government that was given to us by the founders. The court is bringing back the independent agencies in a decision recently in which they decided that the president could, in fact, fire the two people in the independent agencies that he fired, even though the law says it has to be for cause. He did it just based on at will. They said the Congress had no right to put that restriction on him, that the Constitution grants him the right to fire anyone who works for him. And it's clear that it does because it comes right out of the Constitutional Convention. They accepted the Fed kind of, although they didn't write a decision on it. I'm going to try to figure out what they find is so peculiar about the Fed that it somehow is entitled to be a fourth branch of government. But we'll see what happens there. With tariffs are within the domain of the president and Congress. A court doesn't set tariffs. It doesn't decide is this a reasonable tariff or not. It can decide constitutional questions, but it can't decide tariffs. And the president was exercising his decision on tariffs based upon emergency powers that come out of the tariff legislation that Congress enacted in 1977, IEPA, which allows him in an emergency to basically move tariffs around in his best judgment. Really also kind of a reflection of his power to conduct foreign policy without undue interference from Congress. There should be no interference from the courts. The courts have no role in this. This is a political question. If somebody doesn't like the way he's exercising this power, the only branch of government that has the power to stop him is the Congress. They can pass a resolution in a minute and stop him. The Supreme Court has no role in this. They're taking the role of judge and they're making it massive. This is a Marxist centralized government expansion. Every time our central government gets bigger and takes on a role that isn't absolutely defined by the Constitution, we get closer to being a dictatorship. That's what China is. It's one massive central government. One of the reasons why it can't flexibly deal with its problems of its economy. So these are very good things that are happening. And let's hope that the courts, particularly the Supreme Court, decides that they're going to make decisions based on the Constitution and not what keeps you or makes you popular around Washington. For fear that when Democrats come in, if they go too far and really follow the will of our founders, the Democrats are going to try to change the court. And that is playing here to a very, very large extent. So this seems to be not very different than the case of U.S. versus Yoshida International in 1975, when Nixon just imposed a 10% tariff based upon his calculation that there was an emergency. And he did it under the Enemy Act. And then after that, in 77, Congress enacted IEPA and took that language and put it right in the statute. Now, the trade court described Trump's imposition of the tariffs as unbounded. Now, it isn't unbounded. It's very specifically laid out in great detail what the tariffs are, how they can be triggered, how they can be reduced. They all have to do with very intricate calculations of the damage done by those countries to our economy in terms of the trade deficit. The idea that the trade deficit is not cannot be a national emergency because we always have one is, of course, absurd. It depends on how high the trade deficit is. So let's think of the budget deficit. When that budget deficit becomes so large that it goes beyond the amount of money, right? When we owe more money than we're taking in, the government stops. That's an emergency, correct? Well, when the trade deficit is too high, it has a massive impact on our economy. And there's one thing between a trade deficit that is reasonable, a trade deficit that is very, very damaging, and a trade deficit that has you in an emergency situation. Well, we sure as hell are like that when we have so many with so many different countries. And that certainly is an emergency. when you look at China, all of their activities against us are a Cold War, if not a warm war. You look at COVID and the number of people they killed there. You look at fentanyl, the number of people they're killing there. You look at the trade practices they follow, which rape us of industries. Now, the president doesn't have to be absolutely right about emergency. He just has to be rational or reasonable. And the people who review that are not the court. People who review it, the Congress. So let's hope that the courts are going to, the Supreme Court is going to recalculate our government somewhere near what our founding fathers wanted. Maybe it has to be somewhat bigger because the world has gotten bigger and everything's gotten bigger. But the smaller it can be, the better off we are. And more importantly, the smaller the federal government, the more freedom we have, true freedom. Now, please do not pay attention to anybody in the media because they do not know what they're talking about unless it's Lindell TV or it's Newsmax or one of our great conservative commentators. So I thought yesterday, and Ted, I thought yesterday the Treasury Secretary really gave it to Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation, who is one of the Margaret Brennan, who is not exactly a fan of Trump. She had in March, she had Bissent on, and she asked him about the studies from the Peterson Institute, which is left of left, even though he was a Republican, that predicted tariffs would spur inflation. So he had the opportunity, and I'm sure he just loved it, to point out to her the tariffs, that inflation, despite all the tariff, everything else, is the lowest that it's been in, 3 years, 4 years, and went down from 2.4 to 2.3% year over year, marking the slowest year over year increase in over 4 years, according to the Federal Consumer Price Index. And when the absolute ideal for inflation is 2 or below. So we're now down to we're now 2.3. So we're almost there. We're 0.3% away from the ideal, which has us in a situation of really there is no inflation or inflation that's going to have any kind of major impact on prices. So do we have the a video of Secretary Bissent on Face the Nation, Ted?
Yeah, we'll get that fired up here.
Also, as you're saying that, the Democrats are really I don't know where their party is anymore. It's very hard to say. I mean, are they still supporting the racial preferences, the gender preferences? They seem to. Are they still supporting Hamas? They seem to. And they seem to be going even further with supporting illegal immigration. I mean, they all supported the opening of the doors but I mean, they went a step further when they now try to bring the criminals back. Now they're trying to bring the criminals back and make war on ICE. So you get certain ones that say we're going to go more toward the middle, but it seems that they're going further left. I mean, even when Biden was here, they went so far left, they opened the doors completely. And now we've got Van Hooferman from Maryland going down and trying to, I know his name, Van Hooferman.
No, I like that one better.
Van Hooferman,
That's some better.
Van Hooferman is trying to singularly bring back a wife beater and human trafficker. The mayor in Newark is trying to break into a detention facility with all kinds of criminals that have beaten the living daylights out of his citizens. He wants them out on the streets so his citizens can get beat some more. The congresswoman is battering around 2 ICE agents in an effort to help the criminals inside. I mean, it's ridiculous. And then judges want to bring back, the judge in Boston wants to bring back about eight or 10 perverts who seem to, this judge seems to not mind the idea that these people come back to Boston who abuse children, kill women, kill people. This is even further than where Biden was. They've gone further crazy left. So that's where the Democratic Party is headed. And I don't know where and how we get an opposition party that shares a basic view of America that's similar with differences in policy. Like, very hard to say that someone is a loyal citizen and they support open borders, because open borders means a complete negation of your nationality. Anybody can come in. So you can be, in a very short period, you can be anything. It negates the idea of civilization, of culture, of a national culture, even a national language. It does reflect itself in how the Hispanic vote has changed dramatically. Between 2016 and 2024, the Hispanic vote has changed by 46%.
What year and what year?
Between 2016 and 2024.
Wow.
And we're not counting the changes that are going on now in 2025, because they're continuing.
That's massive.
So I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking. So can we put on the secretary now and listen to him take on the completely fair and unbiased Margaret Brennan?
Yeah, we'll bring it on right now.
Are you anticipating price increases? Well, you told us you were going to appoint an affordability czar and council to figure out 5, you said, or 8 areas where there will be some, pain for working class Americans. Where are you anticipating price increases?
Well, thus far, we wanted to make sure that there aren't price
That's okay.
increases.
I know
thus
it.
far, there have been no price increases. Everything has been alarmist. The inflation numbers are actually dropping.
For consumers, the reality is there will either be less inventory or things at higher prices or both.
When we were here in March, you said there was going to be big inflation. There hasn't been any inflation. Actually, the inflation numbers are the best in 4 years. So why don't we stop trying to say this could happen and wait and see what does happen?
Just trying to gauge for people planning ahead here. You told us you were going to appoint an affordability.
Spartacus. Would you say that was a Nazi salute by Spartacus?
Well,
Well, show me the difference.
well, it's not really us that, you know, they're the ones that set the standard. So this, first of all, this isn't us calling it a Nazi salute.
They were going crazy when he did that.
Yeah.
When Elon did that.
But here it is. I have it on video.
There you go.
Here's the video. There it is. So I'll play it on repeat here.
And he does it right out of the touching his heart for.
Yeah. I mean, Mayor, 2025, United States of America, I'm not really looking for Nazi salutes. They're the ones that set the standard here. They're the ones that informed us.
I don't think he's doing a Nazi salute. I'm just pointing it out to point out how.
No, I know exactly. That's what I'm saying, right?
Completely unfair they are.
Right. If they
Also,
set the standard.
Andrea Pizer in the Post, and more should have been made of this. Michelle Obama has a podcast that I'm unaware of because I've never seen it, nor do I know how to find it. And I think I should force myself to watch it. Be considered work. I don't know. Do we get a clip from this? Did we get a clip from it? I mean, I don't know. We can play it tomorrow. We should play it. No, it's part of their podcast. It's called IMO with Michelle Obama and Craig Robinson. Yeah. Craig Robinson is her brother. Now I don't know the context of this, but I'll read to you what Andrea wrote about it. Okay. This is Michelle now speaking. I attempted to make the argument on the campaign trail this past election was that there's just so much more at stake, and because so many men have no idea about what women go through. She said, Obama said, delving treacherously close to Democratic-style word salad. Then here's the quote. Women's reproductive health is about our life. It's about this whole complicated reproductive system that the least of what it does is produce life.
We do have this on video.
Now, I think this ends any serious consideration of this nitwit for president. What the hell is she talking about? This complicated reproductive system that the least of what it does is produce life. The definition of it alone should tell you what the major purpose of it is. It's called, hey, dope, it's called reproductive system.
Should we play it? You want to play the clip or not?
Yeah, play if you got to play it. I mean,
no idea about what women go through, right? We haven't been researched, we haven't been considered, and it affects the way a lot of male lawmakers, a lot of male politicians, a lot of male religious leaders think about the issue of choice as if it's just about the fetus, the baby, but women's reproductive health is about our life. It's about this whole complicated reproductive system that does the least of what it does is produce life. It's a very important thing that it does.
What?
But it's the least of which is life?
That's the most important thing. That's the most important. What?
It's
what? This is bizarre. You're right, Mayor.
I want to know.
This is worse than I thought.
I want to know. I want her to list the other things about the reproduction. Oh, put it off.
It's off. I just have it on silent while you talk.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Well, she made a couple.
I mean,
what else is the reproductive system about other than producing life? I don't know. There probably are. I wish Dr. Maria were here. Maybe we'll get her tomorrow night. But I'm going to think about this, and I'd like you tonight to think about. I'd like you to write down what other things the reproductive system is about other than reproduction. Maybe she doesn't know that when they say reproductive, they mean reproducing a human being.
Right.
producing a human being? I mean, does she think it's something else? Does she think it aids in digestion?
Well, it does go to show that.
Or aids in excretion? Or aids in mental stability? Or it aids in blood circulation?
There's another part of this I want us to focus on, Mayor. I want to get your reaction to.
What is she talking about?
It's just about the fetus. Religious leaders
just about the fetus.
Think about the issue of choice as if it's just about.
But nobody thinks about the fetus. They kill the fetus.
See how she says that? The fetus, as if it's like this, like that's the next generation of human life. That's a baby.
Yeah, and they want to kill it even after it's the fetus.
The way they even say the word, right?
Yeah, they're horrible people.
That does.
Really
I agree with you.
I mean, now this may be very, very interesting because it may get to the core of why they murder so much little babies.
There is something.
What is the I'm really trying to think, and I'm not a doctor. I'm trying to think, what other purposes does the reproductive system have other than reproducing? What does it do? Does it, I mean, there must do some other things that I'm just not aware of. I mean, obviously, they're not more important than reproducing. That's the whole purpose of it.
Right.
The brain does more important things than thinking. Okay, so the brain does other things like has a lot more control over our emotions than we think. Okay. But, or is that part of our thinking? A broader definition of thinking. The digestive system does more important things than digest. We're kind of learning that it does actually. But it's certainly the most important thing it does is digest.
That really did
call it the digestive system.
That reminded me of Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
That really did.
The urinary system does, well, it does two important things, right? We urinate with it, and we also reproduce with it. So
right,
that's sort of, so you could say in the case of a male, if you wanted to, that peeing is more important than reproducing. But in the case of a female, I think the two systems, I got to go look at biology. I think the two systems, the system of excretion and the system of reproduction are separate.
Okay, let's entertain her perspective here. But what exactly, when she says that it's the least of what a woman's reproductive system does, this is her words. Women getting pregnant and having babies is, quote, the least of what a woman's reproductive system does. What is in her mind? We'll have to go, I might have to watch that. More of that.
I mean, I don't know if I can touch on this, but I mean, a woman has her period every month. That's because because of her egg.
I was going to say that's connected to the reproductive,
which is the
part of the reproductive
Here's
process.
what you don't want to accept, all of you who resist this. She's stupid.
What's going on?
She's stupid. She is not this brilliant whatever, and neither is Prince Obama. The guy couldn't write his law review article. These are hardly, big intellects. They'll take some kind of an idiotic Marxist idea they were taught, and then they'll contort whatever facts fit it because they don't read, they don't think, they're not that well educated. That is one of the dopiest things anybody ever said. The words contradict themselves. The least important thing the reproductive system does is reproduce.
Mayor,
and nobody pays attention to it but Andrea Pfizer.
But we know why.
And this is a woman that she says she doesn't want to be president, but the Democrats keep talking about her being the ideal. Of course, she's the ideal presidential candidate. She might be dumber than Biden. Who knows? Yeah. I bet if you asked Biden in his heyday, what's the least important?
We know how he'd answer that. Come on.
He'd look around and he'd take a poll.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. No, but I mean, can you imagine if one of these people were actually smart? considering all the advantages they have with the media and the tech companies. Imagine if one of them actually could. Man.
Yeah, I mean,
Scary.
people used to say
Bill
that
Clinton.
Obama would have been really dangerous if he had energy. But he was very lazy.
That's what they say. And then
They don't say it. He said it.
Oh,
He said it. He said it, and again, in something covered up. An interview with, we'll find that too. An interview with Barbara Walters. I think it was the second or the third Christmas interview. She asked him if he has any weaknesses,
he said,
he said I'm lazy, and the one you just saw there, who's bigger than him, kicked him, and said that it wasn't true. She corrected him right away because she knew how that was going to play out, but it didn't play out. Nobody ever covered it. And Barbara Walters, who liked him a lot, used to always say, you know, that he was lazy. Good for us because we'd be talking Chinese now if he wasn't lazy or whoever he wanted to sell us out to. So let's go to the big news and the exciting news of the day, and that is the attack, the unbelievable attack of Ukraine on Russia. So let's put it in context here. This is the biggest assault on Russia since their ally Adolf Hitler turned on them and attacked them. And I want you to remember that they were an ally of the Nazis and that they didn't break the alliance with the Nazis. The Nazis broke the alliance with them. And then, of course, through Roosevelt and the communists around him, we became best friends with Uncle Joe and delivered Eastern Europe to him when we didn't have to. But that's another story. So no one expected this. This was a massive attack. It penetrated 2,500 miles into Russia, which means it went into deep Siberia, where it hit. We're going to have to do something with the C thing. So let's take a look at the map right away before it goes out. Those are the bases, the main bases that were hit. Let's point out that two of them, Ivanovo and Diaghilev, two of them, two of them are right next to Moscow. One is both are east of Moscow, and one is a bit north and one is a bit south. Now, I don't know. I know the base Olenia is extremely strategic. That's sitting up there right next to Finland. If you go direct north, you're at the North Pole, right? And you come right over and you're in Canada or the United States. So if you're gonna launch an attack on the United States, that's a pretty damn good place to launch it from. They may have one closer, I don't know, but that's a critical base. And hitting that was in and of itself pretty good. It's 1,673 miles from Kyiv. The Ivanovo and the Diaghilev bases may very well be important bases. They protect Moscow in a way, right? But I think the real purpose of hitting them was to send a message. And the message was real simple. The message was, we can hit you. We can hit Moscow. We just went beyond Moscow and hit two of your bases. And I think did tremendous damage to them. And then they went deep into the Asian part of Russia, which is separated by the Ural Mountains, and by hitting the Belaya Air Base, which is basically in right above Mongolia. So, and most of occupied Russia is to the west of that. In other words, Belaya Air Base would be like the terminal area for where you're going to find. You don't have many more people. I remember flying over it one Super Bowl Sunday, very anxious to get home in time for the Super Bowl. And I don't remember how long I was looking at ice, but I listened to an opera. And I must have been in a daze. And my partner, Mike Hess, I think got hypnotized by. He said, "When is the ice going to end?" And then every once in a while, you'd look down and you'd see a little teeny little village covered in snow. And I mean, 2/3 of Russia is like that, and there's no people there. So most of Russia is pretty much where you see those first three bases, Olyenya down to Ivanovo and Diaghilev. So this was quite an operation, and there's got to be there's going to have to be a result from this. Putin is either going to step up what he's doing, or he is going to listen to Trump and start to negotiate, really negotiate, not this garbage that he wants more, and he wants Ukraine to not be to defend itself. And I mean, what he's put on the table is insulting. It's ridiculous. And then the question is, if he doesn't, do they continue? Because I don't know if the Russian people were in for, they're going to get hit. This was a one-way, Ukraine was a punching bag. This was a one-way street. They attacked the towns and cities and villages in Ukraine and killed the women and children. But God forbid you did that in Russia. And for the Russians to treat this as some kind of a unfair attack is absurd. They've been doing this to Ukraine since the day the war began. And Biden has been holding their hands behind their back, not allowing them to do this. One of their big achievements that they're touting, and they should, is that they eliminated about 1/3 of the fleet of doomsday bombers that Russia has. And they hit the bases that have these bombers. Now, these bombers are part of Russia's nuclear deterrent because they can carry atomic weapons into Europe. And were used as you hit us, these are going to get released right away. But they were reconfigured. They were reconfigured, and what they were doing was they were using them to deliver cruise missiles to various hits in Ukraine, and not discriminating as to whether they hit military facilities or cities. The case of Kiev and Kharkiv, you can look and you can see that in Kharkiv, they tried to do everything they could to destroy that city, which is their second largest city, the one that's right on the border. So they, according to the Ukrainian officials, they wiped out about 1/3 of those massive doomsday bombers. They also struck and destroyed Tu-95 Bear nuclear bombers, Tu-22 backfire fast attack bombers, and A-50 mainstay command and control jets. They were all hit. Furthest hit was in Irkutsk region of Siberia, 2,500 miles from Ukraine. They hit Murmansk in the Arctic Circle, beyond the ones that are on there. And then, of course, Ivanovo that you see there, and Diaghilev, and also another base southeast of Moscow, a third one. The code name for this was Operation Spiderweb. It took 18 months to plan. 18 months to plan. So when you say America didn't know about it, that has to be ridiculous. How could they be planning this for 18 months? It's the biggest operation of the war, maybe even bigger than any that Russia carried on. And we're there training them. Many of the airplanes, they used F-16s, they used aircraft that we gave them, they used systems that we gave them, they used systems that they didn't know how to use a year ago, and only we could train them with. They're doing all this, getting ready for an attack like this, and we don't, and our intelligence doesn't pick it up. Boy, it's got to be as bad as Russia's, because Russia's intelligence didn't pick it up. Interesting, huh? Russia's intelligence did not pick it up. So I am saying that we knew about it. Almost definitive about it. And I'll tell you what I was waiting for today. And when we talked to Allison before at the White House, I asked her, what was the reaction at the White House today? Was there a lot of consternation and a lot of, absolutely none, and it was hardly mentioned. Well, let's face it, if all of a sudden your ally, and in the case of Ukraine, it hasn't been like a rosy relationship with Trump. If all of a sudden they bomb the living daylights out of a nuclear power, and you didn't pick it up when they took 18 months to plan it, number one, your intelligence has got to be worth nothing. And number two, your relationship is ruined. You're going to be really upset today, right? And we know it's the nature of a White House to leak stuff like that. They leak a lot less important stuff than that, or a lot of stuff that you wouldn't think it'd be leaked because it didn't matter. But there is no indication of anger in the White House today. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? It tells you that we knew about it and we approved of it. Also, although Zelenskyy got into trouble with Trump originally, I don't think that Zelenskyy is going to risk our support to do this attack. Because if you don't have our support, it's a very dangerous attack to do. You've put yourself now really out on the end of the deck, right? You better have support for doing something like this. My guess is we knew about it, Germany knew about it, UK knew about it, France knew about it, maybe NATO in general knew about it, but at least those 4 countries knew about it. 5 countries whose support they rely on to stay alive. And given the reaction in those capitals, with no, gee, this goes too far, wanting to suck up to Russia, I've got to say it's, you have to do an awful lot to convince me we didn't know about it. What do you think, Ted?
In terms of the next...
Well, in terms of the whole thing, the next question is going to be, so now what happens?
Right. Well,
but did we know about it or didn't we know about it?
Well, Mayor, look, we tune in to get your expert, you've been around these sorts of things. You've talked to people, you know so many people. Just listening to you today.
Well, I told you.
Yeah, that's the thing.
When
My head.
I heard about it that we knew about it.
Yeah. So and
then
can you repeat what you said to me, because that made so much sense to me. That's my position.
Yeah, I mean, just to start with, I don't believe this guy would do this without our permission.
Right.
Then number two,
that's right. That's right. That's what you had said.
And the next 24 hours now have supplied circumstantial evidence.
Right.
The lack of reaction. You know, when we get double crossed, even if we don't make a formal statement, we'll take a shot at them. Right.
Right.
A reliable source said Trump is very angry at Zelenskyy for what he did. I don't see that anywhere.
And that's what we're waiting for. Moscow, the Kremlin has been quiet.
And the president's hardly a guy who hides things.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. So, and what you're seeing now, these are the trucks that the drones had been flown in on, right here, or not driven in on. And there's a drone leaving right now. So this is how these attacks unfolded.
Well,
the Ukrainians
infiltrated. Who knows how long they've been? It sounds like they've been bringing those drones in for a long time.
Mayor, it's a small screen for you, but right here, a drone is flying out of that truck bed.
Mm-hmm.
So this is showing the drone. And then after these drones had all left the trucks, which were strategically driven into Russia, obviously, they self-destructed. The trucks did. But that is how this unfolded. This is, of course, a new sort of warfare, drone warfare. What we're seeing,
they've become very good at it.
Right. In this war,
Ukrainians.
The Ukrainians have,
well, so have the Russians.
The Russians as well. And of course, this was a big drone attack, and this occurred Sunday. Ukraine struck where it could make a difference, and it damaged or destroyed military aircraft that Moscow has been using in its war against Ukraine. Many say what this does is show a big weakness in the Russian defense.
Well, I imagine also those are much more precision targets.
Right.
Meaning, when they say they hit a target 2,500 miles into Russia, that may very well be one that takes off from Ukraine and ends up there. But these drone attacks take place at much closer quarters, so
right.
They can be a lot more precise.
Right.
I mean, a real question is, how accurate was the attack? It sounds like it was at least, even if it wasn't 100% accurate, it did a hell of a lot of damage. At least 41 of the heavy bombers were taken out.
That's right.
So we've been able to pretty much confirm that.
This occurred just yesterday. Over 100 drones.
100
over
exactly,
100.
Right.
And it struck these air bases that you showed on that map deep inside Russia. We'll bring it up right here. And it targeted specifically nuclear capable long range bombers.
Yeah, I also think it's very interesting that they hit the bases right near Moscow. I mean, those look like they were much easier to hit because they're very close, where the 700 miles and 600 and something miles, 48 miles or 40 miles. You're not proving much in terms of your capability hitting those, but you are saying something like, maybe we could change that. Maybe we could change that target by an inch on the computer, put it on your head, Putin.
That's right.
An awful lot of people would feel pretty good if we did that. All the people, families, the people you killed, you son of a bitch, right?
That's right. They call this, the Ukrainians dubbed this operation, as you said, Mayor, Operation Spiderweb.
And it reminds me of an Israeli kind of operation where, number one, it does a great deal of damage all at once, but it also shows a lot more than just the damage. It shows they can hit all the way up in the northern part of Russia, which is very important to us because that's where the air bases are that attack us. So they did us a real favor in taking out Olenya Air Base. Hopefully they destroyed it, because that has to be one of the places that's a key place for attacking us. Because the best route to us is over the North Pole.
That's right.
Which is why we want Greenland.
That's right.
And why Alaska is so important.
Well, these attacks that took place just yesterday included a location as far north as Murmansk.
Right.
You mentioned this one. That's in the Arctic Circle. That's above the Arctic Circle. And they went as far as the Amur region, which is over 8,000 kilometers.
Yeah, it was
from Ukraine.
Quite an attack. And again, an attack of this dimension and you're working with them, training them, and how to use probably half the equipment they used. I mean, the equipment, half of their equipment or more comes from us. The other half comes from Germany, England, France. Even those are sometimes our equipment. So they found that when they were training, the best thing to do was to get the Americans in to train them because they had the original sort of expertise with the equipment. And part of what was holding things up originally was they got the F-16s, but they couldn't fly them because they're used to flying MiGs that are quite a bit different, apparently, and also not anywhere near as effective as the F-16s. And since they've had the F-16s, they've been going into the parts of Russia they were allowed to hit. Another reason why I'm sure they had to let us know about it was they have been very, very careful not to go beyond the Biden restrictions of not hitting deep into Russia, even with great provocation to do it. So here they, and Biden was sort of on their side. And here they're going to irritate Trump by, that doesn't make any sense.
That's right. But Ukraine, of course, had been planning this. The drones were smuggled into Russia inside wooden cabins mounted on the back of these flatbed trucks and concealed below remotely operated detachable roofs. These trucks, as we had shown in that video, were then driven to locations near these different air bases that we will show up on the screen right now by drivers who were, by all accounts, unaware of what was inside. Now, who knows, right? That's either a way to protect the drivers or they simply didn't know. Then the drones were launched and set upon their targets. The videos that we've seen show the drones emerging from the roofs of these vehicles or from these cabins on the back of these trucks. And then they went to their attack. They hit their locations.
The reports that we have so far, of course, they'll become more complete and more accurate as days go by. But there were 472 drones, 7 ballistic missiles, and cruise missiles involved in it, and they successfully hit 385 targets. So there were some very big targets, and then probably some smaller targets. They believe that it had an impact on the Russian military capability, particularly with the major bombers that they took out.
That's right. And what you see on the video, what you see on your screen now, this is what we described. These are the drones coming outside the back of one of these flatbed semi trucks, and these cabins here, which we'll freeze frame it here. That is a drone. If you look right just below the Russian lettering there, we'll make it a little bit bigger, and we'll rewind it.
So now,
boom, right there. That's the drone.
Putin has to react.
Right.
I mean, this is, again, this is the biggest attack on Russia since 1940. Was it 40 or 39 that Hitler turned on him?
Hitler turned on
40, right?
Stalin.
Because they were allies for 3 or 4 years.
That was actually I want to say 39, but 1941, June 1941, okay. Germany launched Operation Barbarossa.
Actually, before we entered the war.
Breaking the pact. In 1939, they had signed the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, a non-aggression pact. That was in August of 1939. Of course, that allowed Germany to focus on other.
And when was it? About the middle of 41? It was before Pearl Harbor.
June 1941, Germany launched a surprise invasion. So that was a surprise invasion.
Yeah, that was. I mean, he turned on them. And
he was anti-communist, Hitler.
Well,
Is that what drove him to
no, no.
take on the Soviets?
There are a lot of speculation about that. First of all, it's considered the biggest mistake that he made because he divided his forces up. Some people have a very psychological explanation of it. They feel he was being pressured a great deal to go across the channel and finish off England, because Dunkirk, England had basically he had all of Europe. So except the European part of Russia.
Yeah.
So he's being pressured to go across the channel, and they were bombing England during the Battle of Britain with airplanes, and it wasn't working.
Okay.
And his army was convinced that they could capture England. And for some reason, he wouldn't do it. And either he believed that he couldn't, or that he could make some kind of a peace with them if he could subdue Stalin. Or some people say he was affected very much by Churchill being put in power, whereas he had a very appeasement-oriented administration and a Chamberlain who gave him everything he wanted, much like Biden. All of a sudden, he gets a guy like Churchill, who for 10 years has been warning about what a danger he is. And of course, he makes that speech about, you want England, you're going to have to kill all of us.
Right.
And he decided that's going to be a hard target. Let me go grab Russia in the meantime, and then I'll see what I can do. He also was convinced incorrectly that America would never come into the war. Had he thought America was going to come into the war, he might have consolidated what he had. And that was a big miscalculation. Now you get a lot of explanation for how did America come into the war.
No.
Of course, Japan attacked us.
Yeah.
But we declared war on Germany. Now, was that the communists around? Is it the communists around Roosevelt that were restraining him for getting involved in the war, while Russia was an ally of Hitler, and then also in a non-aggression pact with Hitler? And then all of a sudden, when Russia becomes in jeopardy, their real country, not America, they start pressuring Roosevelt. And Roosevelt starts to put pressure on Japan and becomes, as far as Japan was concerned, less reasonable with Japan. And therefore, Japan attacks us. Of course, there's always the conspiracy theory that Roosevelt knew about the attack and let it happen because it was the only way he could get us into the war. Now, I've never seen any evidence of that. Oh, I can't say
That's always the theory, though, right?
I can't say I've never seen any evidence of it. I've seen evidence of it that doesn't amount to proving it.
They say that about almost every war has a situation like that. The Gulf of Tonkin.
Bush bombed the World Trade Center.
Or the Gulf of Tonkin, right? Or Vietnam. Wasn't there something there with?
Yes.
And I'm sure you can go back to.
Yeah. The reason I never thought that made much sense was no matter what, that attack could have taken out our entire fleet. And it would have been too dangerous a way to start the war. But in any of that, but then you have things like our entire fleet just happened not to be there.
And so that shows how, but isn't another reason of how this is different than what Ukraine did? What you just said, Mayor, to me is just another reason that this isn't Pearl Harbor.
Yeah. I mean, the Japanese ambassador, I think, had a meeting that Sunday with the Secretary of State, Cordell Hull, to go over certain things that we were negotiating about. And I guess he did come over anyway, or I don't remember if it was canceled or he came over, and Cordell Hull, I don't know, got very angry at him or whatever, but we declared war the next day. We declared war on the Axis powers the next day. Again, the question is, why did we immediately declare war on Germany when Japan attacked us? And why was our priority defeating Germany at the beginning and not Japan? May have been correct. It may have been a correct way to do it. Or as some historians say, it may have been influenced very much by the communist influence on, and also there was a tremendous amount of pressure when Russia says they won the war. They were begging us for D-Day and angry at us that we weren't doing it. They knew that if we attacked, it would divert a tremendous number of German soldiers from battling them, because they didn't defeat Germany until we came into the war. I mean, they could have fought that like Iraq and Iran. They could still be fighting it. I think Russia should get down on its hands and knees and thank us.
But Japan attacking
Had we not entered the war, Germany would have conquered Russia. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. I mean, they wouldn't have. There wouldn't have been any. There wouldn't have been any conflicting. There'd be no Western Front. They had already, as long as they were content in not capturing England.
How many more people did Russia have?
Oh, Russia has,
because they lost like 30 million, right?
Yeah, but I mean, people are people. All they had to do was capture up to Moscow.
Because the point being, Russia seemed like they were going to fight to.
Matter. I mean, let them keep that. Let them keep.
Yeah, you can't. Isn't it almost impossible to actually conquer Russia?
No. Oh, all of Russia? You wouldn't want all of Russia. Who the hell would want all of it? All you want is up to Moscow, or maybe up to the Urals. We got a tremendous amount of. That's where whatever minerals or whatever they have would be all there. That's where all their steel mills are.
That's where they all.
The Urals is the European dividing line between European Russia and Asian Russia.
Yeah.
But
of course,
all the wealth is in European Russia, and all the problems are in Asian Russia.
Yeah. But
and if you have European Russia, Asian Russia, not enough people to conquer you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. That's what I've heard. I've heard about how the divide in Russia. But it's interesting, Mayor. What do you foresee happening next? How will Russia respond to this? I mean, it'd be interesting to see how the media there is covering this, right? It almost doesn't matter. Well, of course it matters, but to the actual conflict, right? How the media there is covering it. The media there
is the one that described it as Russian Pearl Harbor.
Right. So it's in Russia's interest to compare it to Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, to give Putin the basis for a major counterattack,
and to, I guess, garner support from the West. But nothing could. Again, Pearl Harbor, Japan, unprovoked attack as an aggressive actor, right?
I mean, Russia's been provoking this attack from the day the war began.
Exactly. So that's very different than Pearl Harbor.
The minute they started bombing cities,
right?
Right, and they went beyond military installations and started bombing cities. This is what a country would naturally do if it wasn't being held back by Biden.
Yeah, right.
I mean, they would have. I mean, even a lesser force in Ukraine would have to do it.
Right.
I mean, the only answer they had. I mean, once Russia got the beat on them and took all that territory, the only answer they had to defeating Russia, they're not going to drive them out of Ukraine.
Yeah.
And if they drive them out of Ukraine, they're going to destroy Ukraine in the process of doing it.
Mano y mano.
Let's say the
man to man.
Let's say you had the resources to really wage a battle against Russia now, and you want to get them out of your country. Do you get them out of your country by going after them and attacking them in your country, which may or may not work, and also is going to destroy that area of your country? Or do you go attack their country and inflict on them the same amount of damage they inflicted on you, and hope that they're going to say, okay, let's get this thing over with, right?
Right.
Because right now it's been pretty much a free ride for Putin, since he doesn't give a damn about lives. Even if he's lost 1 million Russians, he doesn't care. He hasn't lost any territory. Look at all the effort he's put out to get Kursk back, and that's a meaningless piece of territory. If all of a sudden he's got to defend his citizens in Moscow, if people in Moscow start getting killed he's either got to. Well, I think he's got to go for peace, because he can't if he starts a nuclear war, if he uses a nuclear weapon.
I don't think. I mean, we're not at that point yet, though, right?
But if he uses a nuclear weapon, the minute that weapon is used, we got to wipe him out.
Well, that's the end of him. But is that something that do we think he's getting to that point or no?
Let's put it this way. I don't think he will do that. However, a lot of people didn't think Hitler would do what he was going to do, or bin Laden. Medvedev has threatened it, and so has he. They've both threatened using nuclear weapons, which I never thought they would do. I just thought that was something beyond the pale to threaten nuclear weapons. Medvedev just a couple of weeks ago threatened Finland and Sweden. Finland and Sweden had almost remained neutral during most of the Cold War. They were more on our side than theirs because they hate Russia, but they remained neutral during the Cold War. When NATO started, they didn't join NATO. Even now, they didn't join NATO. They joined NATO after he attacked Ukraine. So Medvedev said that was a betrayal, and he doesn't discount that they would use interim range nuclear missiles against them, against Sweden and Finland. I mean, that would start World War III immediately. I mean, the minute they shoot off a nuclear weapon, we have to say they're going to do it to us, so let's get rid of them. And of course, if they were to do it to a to a NATO member, we're required to defend them under the treaty. So they shoot a missile at Sweden, they've shot a missile at us. And you have to conclude, if he did that, he's gone a little nuts. Because it's really crazy over Ukraine to do this, over his wanting Ukraine to get 5 or 10 million Russians killed.
And bombing civilian targets, just that should be off. I mean, I don't understand. Like you said,
well, he's been bombing civilian targets. I mean, there's no question about it.
And by the way, that's also hurt him for any actual claim he would have to any of this. Doesn't he lose? Don't you lose all credibility when you bomb civilians?
There's anyone other than the ones that are under his thumb that would say he has any justification for some kind of being shocked and some terrible. I don't even think China does.
Right.
I think China is looking for an excuse to pull out on him.
Right. And he's hurting himself if they are in fact continuing to hit, which we seem to have. I mean,
China's got to be saying to themselves, this might have been a very bad investment we made here. Also, they've been planning it for 18 months, and the Russian intelligence services didn't pick it up.
18 months. That doesn't. It's an embarrassment.
You have two different reports: 18 months and 1 year. Either one.
That's got to be.
Which is why we had to know about it.
Although Russia does claim to have shot down 316, they intercepted 316. Intercepting isn't always, they're not. Some of these are smaller, so they're not shot down.
Well, I mean, look, you're going to get propaganda on both sides. So that's going to shake out. That's going to shake out. The mere fact they could penetrate that far is frightening. I mean, if they got 2,500 miles into Russia and not been taken out, that doesn't say very much for their defensive system. And they have shown some of the damage, right? Some of the video of the damage.
Right. Yeah. We're going to we'll play this video again. What you see here.
I mean, these bases should be secure.
So this is a drone.
Ours are more secure than that, right?
Right. And this is a view from a drone. This is a Ukrainian drone flying into a Russian bomber. According to an initial statement from the Ukrainian Armed Forces General Staff, the drones hit 41 aircraft. As of Monday evening, those claims have been reassessed, And Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council is now saying at least 13 aircraft were destroyed. So that's down from 41 to 13. This includes an intermediate range supersonic bomber, a long range turboprop bomber, and an A-50 mainstay airborne early warning and control platform. So we will await. Here we go. Here's some.
Probably going to turn out to be in the middle of.
Wow, this is real?
It's going to probably turn out to be less than the Ukraine claimed originally, and a lot more than Russia claims.
Let's see if we can get some video. Look at this.
Well, let's make sure we got everybody caught up on everything that they should be caught up on. The Trump administration is sticking with the Massapequa Chiefs and fighting the battle of they're not having to change their name from the Chiefs, which has been their name of their sports teams since the beginning. And most of Nassau County doesn't want it changed, but the comrades in Hochul's, New York, from above, from Albany, said you got to change the name Chiefs because it's insulting. And so far, no Native American has shown up and said they're insulted. Hochul is insulted that their names are the Chiefs. So this is a great battle for us to fight, particularly since we like to win Nassau County again, because it's a key to winning New York, on turning New York. There's a great little article about New Yorkers mispronouncing names that I just have. Everybody knows about Houston Street and Houston Street, right?
Yeah.
That somehow we call it Houston, and one of the reasons is that back in 1811, when it was named after William Houston. His name is spelled different than Houston. It isn't named after Sam Houston, but the guy it's named after is William Houston, a U.S. founding father whose father-in-law's land was once encompassed in Lower Manhattan. Now it's spelled as follows: Houston. So we pronounced it with the Dutch as Houston, whereas they pronounce it Houston. Now there's another one, Fort Schuyler, which is right. It's in Brooklyn Heights, right next to the Verrazano Bridge, and it's a functioning fort in New York City. And no. I'm thinking of the one. I'm thinking of a different one. That's Fort Hamilton. Fort Schuyler is the one of the Throgs Neck Bridge and where the Maritime campus is. And we pronounce it Fort Schuyler. But everybody from every place else in the world would pronounce it as Fort Schuyler, because it's SCHU. We pronounce it as if it's spelled SKYLR. Then we have the Van Wyck Expressway, and it should be the Van Wyck Expressway if it was the proper Dutch pronunciation. And then we have what I always call the Kosciuszko Bridge, which is properly pronounced Kosciuszko Bridge. But everybody in New York for generations pronounced it as the Kosciuszko Bridge. This is because we're the capital of the world. And like Trump is allowed to rename the Gulf of America, we're allowed to call things anything we want to call it because it's New York. Of course, I'm not a New Yorker anymore officially, but still. New York is, I don't understand this. I've been trying to figure it out. But New York is trying to figure out how they can do even earlier parole so that everybody gets out or starts to, by the time, by the time they're 55, I don't know. 42 cop killers have been released because of Cuomo's early parole legislation. 42. Since only 2019, a walk in the street. I'm telling you, I used to estimate about 7,000 people were walking around the streets in New York that I would have had in prison or Bloomberg. I think it's probably 3,000, 4,000 more now. But Adams has gotten murder down. So, I don't know, might help him. Cuomo is the reason for all the crime problems. Adams has at least had some success in bringing them down, and they all want Cuomo. I don't think the old people want Cuomo. I think they're afraid of him, aren't they, Ted? I don't know. It could come about again that the nursing homes threaten them, and well, never mind. But hopefully that's going to be explored because. But the main thing is he's the architect of all the legislation that led to New York crime problems.
Wow.
Now, we're going to finish with this one because I was going to talk about Trump and Springsteen. It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
Yeah. Oh, we got it. I got that.
It's not worth it. Oh, his attack on the cops. Springsteen's attack on the cops. I told you I never liked him, even when I went to his one dearly departed Ted Olson got me to go, and I said it's just a bunch of noise, not music.
Yeah, you're not a Springsteen guy, but
so here's a very frightening thing that has reportedly happened that Ted didn't believe. Ted does not believe this, but I'm gonna. It's in. I think the. Okay, here we go. It is reported from the nonprofit AI lab Palisade Research that if you give AI instructions after it's been developed, to do certain things, it doesn't necessarily have to. It has a mind of its own. So they did this experiment, I guess, to try to test it. In 79 out of 100 trials, independently edited script was developed by them when it was told to shut down. And then, even when explicitly instructed to allow yourself to be shut down, it disobeyed 7% of the time. And it wasn't a result of hacking or tampering. The model was behaving normally. It was making its calculations, and its calculations told it, don't close down. Now, here's where it gets even more dangerous. Another anthropic AI model, Claude for Opus, did the following. It was told that it would be replaced by another AI system. And then it was given fictitious emails that the lead engineer was having an affair. The lead engineer who was going to close them down was having an affair. In 84% of the cases, the model drew on the emails to blackmail the lead engineer into not shutting it down. In the other cases, it tried to copy itself so it could continue to exist. But in 84% of the cases, it tried to blackmail him. That's what, remember, I don't understand the science of it in any kind of detail, but the theory of it is, right? You feed into it all this information and it calculates based on that information. So it can calculate protecting itself from extinction. And it can turn to blackmail. That's one of the ways. In other words, it has a criminal. It has criminal tendencies. No one programmed the AI models. This is an article by Judd Rosenblatt in the Wall Street Journal. No one programmed the AI models to have survival instincts. But just as animals evolved to avoid predators, it appears that any system smart enough to pursue complex goals will realize it can't achieve them if it's turned off, and therefore take action against being turned off. How dangerous is that? This is like those horror movies when the machines take over, or the monsters take over. But imagine 84% of the time, it started blackmailing the engineer. Oh, I guess AI has original sin too. I don't know. We'll have to see. The Polish election, by the way, they elected a conservative president, Karol Nawrocki. Nawrocki was supported by Donald Trump, including a visit in the Oval Office, and so that's pretty good. So we'll be back with you tomorrow. We'll see. We should have. I mean, by tomorrow, we should have some kind of insight into what the reactions are going to be to this bold and I believe very necessary action by the Ukraine government, and largely because of Putin's unwillingness to discuss stopping the murder. I mean, this just can't go on forever, and it also becomes a test of our seriousness that will be interpreted by others, in particular Xi Jinping. And we want them, if we're going to deal with peace through strength, they have to believe we're going to use that strength. If we just have that strength to, for parades, we're not going to deter many people. So this is a good time to really assess what's going on. Be a hell of a time to hit Iran. Hell of a time. I think you'd knock out Putin and Xi if right now we woke up tomorrow morning and we found out that Israel, with the help of the United States, has taken out all of Iran's nuclear facilities. Well, that's at least my opinion. See what you think. We'll be back tomorrow night pursuing all this, and who knows what else. My goodness, this weekend produced quite a surprise, right? And we'll see how much further we're getting in the effort to bring our government back to the freest, the fairest, and the best government in the world or in the history of the world. So pray for the people of Ukraine. Pray for the people of Russia. Who knows how many of them really support this homicidal maniac? And the people of China, because, except for the communists at the top, they're all a bunch of victims. I mean, that's like 100 million as opposed to 1.2 billion. And pray for the people of Ukraine and for Israel and for Iran and so many others. And pray for us. And pray for the president. And also remember in your prayers my good friend Bernie Kerik, whose family is going through hell right now. And hopefully Bernie is being embraced for the hero that he was and is. But his family needs all the love you can give them. The funeral mass will be on Friday at St. Patrick's Cathedral, and the wake will be in New Jersey on Thursday. So if you could just mention him in your prayers and the family, I'd really appreciate it. So we'll see you tomorrow night at 7 o'clock on Lindell's TV and X, and then we'll be here at 8 with America's Mayor Live from New Hampshire. And we'll have a couple of surprises for you tomorrow night as we just put this studio together last night and this morning. Not bad, huh? For
I want to clean. We'll give him a better shot. Once we have it.
yeah, we'll get it. We'll get
Give him a full view.
Ted doesn't think it's neat enough. He's doesn't want you to.
Is he well, Sean?
Yeah, well, as we cut out, I'll say I'll say goodnight, and God bless America. And Ted's going to take one of the cameras here and move it around a little and show you what things look like here in our barn or garage, whichever. Probably was originally a barn, and now it's a garage. Here with, wish we had the horses back.
Yeah, we gotta get the horses back. You ready?
I'm ready. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna show them a little bit here while we put some music.
Why don't we liberate these United States? We're the ones who need it worst. Let the rest of the world help us for change, and let's rebuild America first. Our highways and bridges are falling apart. Who's blessed and who has been cursed? There's things to be done all over the world, but let's rebuild America first.
That was good because now we got an idea of what we can do with the rest of that.
Who's on the hill and who's watching the...
It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given common sense.